Hi, I'm DeWayne Gordon. I hope when you look back at your life, you live life by design because you only go once.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you everybody for coming tonight. I'm so excited. I don't know, I've had a rough week. I'll be honest. I'm just gonna level set the group here tonight. Um, but it's kind of as soon as I sign on and I see Cheryl's face and DeWayne, it's been too long, but I am so excited to be here tonight and have this conversation. We are kicking off another episode of You Only Go Once. I'm Eileen Grimes. I'm here with my amazing, wonderful friend and co-host, Cheryl Cantafio. And Cheryl is going to introduce our guest tonight. Cheryl, off to you.
Thanks, Eileen. They say life is a journey, and DeWayne has taken that adage to heart. A self-proclaimed sporadic entrepreneur, DeWayne Gordon has dabbled in a couple of ventures here and there, each one adding a unique thread to the tapestry of his experience. Currently, DeWayne is in the process of launching his most exciting venture, 40AM Capital, which is a financial services business that is geared towards changing the way people of color view and engage with their personal finances. When the entrepreneurial spirit takes a breather, DeWayne dons the hat of a mentor, guiding others through the wilderness of their lives and ambitions. His wisdom, gleaned from the successes and stumbles of his own life experiences, is a valuable compass for those seeking to navigate the twists and turns of life. But wait, there's more. In a surprising turn of events, DeWayne found himself in the world of civil service, proving that sometimes the most unplanned paths can lead to the most fulfilling destinations. DeWayne brings his unique blend of creativity, problem solving, and a touch of calmness to the world of bureaucracy, transforming the city of Philadelphia one project at a time. This year, DeWayne is gearing up to getting back to hiking, pun intended. Hiking is the one thing that allows him to unwind, unplug, exhale, and fully enjoy the outdoors. Along with hiking, DeWayne will look to get back to his other passion, which is photography of nature. Everybody, please welcome DeWayne Gordon. DeWayne, we're so happy to
Thank you.
have
Thank
you
you.
here.
Yeah, I'm
Awesome.
happy to be here. So I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Oh my goodness. So, disclosure for our audience is that DeWayne, Eileen, and I all used to work together. And it was a blast. Like we always had
Yes.
fun. Um, DeWayne got to experience my driving once when we went to
Oh,
visit
I'm
a
so
college.
sorry.
Yeah, it's so
Oh,
awful
yeah.
for you. That was a nightmare.
I still
And
talk about that.
I'm sure you do. Yeah, the poor man. So also disclosure, Dwayne is like 6'100, and for people that are my height, which is like 5'4" on a good day, he's very tall. So the poor man got into my car and his knees were up around his ears. So and he had to deal with my driving on top of that. So it was just
It was all
it was an
good.
experience. It was an experience. But
Yes.
we reconnected through a mutual friend, and he kind of shared with us that you were going to put together this new venture that we're so excited to talk
Yes.
about. So can you give us a little more about 40AM Capital, where the whole idea came from, and where it's going?
Yeah, absolutely. So this all started back in 2019. In 2019. So at the end of every year, I normally just spend time reflecting on how did I do that year, right? So look at professionally, personally, and even financially. And so when I got to the financial part, it was more about, did I reach my goals? Did I really help anyone financially, whether it's with my own money or helping them think through their own financial issues? And I missed the target, right? And so once in 2020, I thought, like, how can I help people, right? And I'm not rich, but I'm financially comfortable. And so I wanted to see how I could leverage my money and help those around me. And so I was like, well, let me just give people loans, you know?
Hmm.
And so that idea popped into my head, I shared with a couple of friends. They're like, are you crazy? You'll never get your money back, you know? And so I just felt otherwise.
Mhm.
And so I just figured that if I put some rules around it and so forth, it could work. This was before the pandemic, right?
Yeah.
So going into January, I reached out, to a couple of friends, a few family members, and told them what I was looking to do. And no takers, crickets, right? And so it's like, well, maybe that was a dumb idea. And about 2 days later, I had a cousin reach out and was like, hey, were you serious about that? I'm like, yeah. Long story short, gave her a loan and it took off, right? And I started getting the text messages and the phone calls. And even though the folks who initially reached out, they are financially, in a better situation than a lot of other people, it was just little life stuff that happens, right? Two flat tires, a leaking roof, whatever it might be, where they didn't want to dip into emergency funds or whatever it might be, right? So that took off. And so I kept it simple. Flat interest rate, 12 months, 18 months. I did a loan, like the smallest loan is like $500 up to $10,000. And what made the whole thing unique was I created the terms so that it made it easy for people to repay me versus saying, hey, something happened, I can't pay you back. So what I did was I said, okay, I'm not going to tell you how much to pay me back every month, right? You have a 12-month or 18-month loan, you figure it out, right? Because you know your budget better than I do. So you can use the entire time frame of the loan. I didn't set a date for them either, right? So if I say, Cheryl, pay me back $300 on the first of every month. Well, you probably have a mortgage, your car payments, your insurance, and so forth, right? But somebody's not going to get paid, right? So I didn't want it to be me. So told them they can figure that out. I also gave them these opportunities of grace where if something comes up, doesn't matter what it is, just give me the heads up. I'm not going to give you a late fee or penalize you or anything. Just tell me ahead of time, right? And so the good thing about that was that when people took advantage of that particular, option, if they said, hey, I need to miss January's payment, that's fine. I didn't tell them, how the payments were going to stack up on them. They automatically said, I'll double up my payments the following month. And they all did, right? So all of that being said, it started to work. I didn't realize how much work it would be, right? Because I had all these requests coming in and everything was rolling. And so I started with one system to track it and it worked for me, but I showed it to other people like, what are you doing? This doesn't make any sense. I'm like, yeah, you're right. So had to go back in and refine it to where I have a full-fledged system now that I designed in Excel that actually works, right? I'm able to track it. Per individual, everyone has, account number, everyone has a setup, track the payments, the dates, all of that stuff. I'm able to put notes in it and so forth. I invested about 52,000 and some change of my own money. And so to date, I've been able to give out about 186,000 in loans because I've not taken any money out. I've kept flipping it over and over and over again. And so I've had repeat borrowers. I've had a few new borrowers, but here's what's interesting. So in all of that, I had a referral program. And so I said, well, if you refer someone, if you are a good borrower where you paid your loan back in full on time, no issues, you get to refer someone. And if you refer that person, they pay their loan back, in a timely manner, no issues, whatever. You get half of the interest rate that I receive.
Oh, wow.
One person took me up on that option. Everyone else said, I don't want to mess this up. So I'll put this in my back pocket, right?
Yeah.
So I was glad to see that people were thoughtful about that. Now here we are, in the pandemic during this time, and this came in handy for a lot of people, right? And it helped them out in so many ways. And so what I found is that in the first pass, right, as far as their first loan, they used it to get out of a bind or pay off debt or whatever it might be. The second time was, how can I get ahead, right? And so now they were putting money into their home to fix it up or whatever, right? Or one person he wanted to start a business. So it was interesting to see how getting out of a bind put them in a different frame of mind to do other things by leveraging other people's money, right?
Yeah.
So to this date, I've issued about, you know what? I have it up. Let me pull it up really quick and I'll tell you. I have issued 53 loans, no defaults.
Wow.
On
Wow.
average, people pay the loans back in 10.8 months. So pretty much ahead of schedule.
Dwayne, that's
That's
amazing.
incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I've generated a 45.24% return on investment. It works. Now, going into 40 a.m. to answer your question. So that was the genesis of it. And so going back into the early 2000s when I was in finance and accounting, people assumed I was a CPA or a controller. I'm like, no, I'm just a lowly budget tech, And they were like, can you help me with my finances? I'm like, no, not really. And I kept getting these requests in. And so here I was doing budgets for the hospital that I worked at. And so I was like, well, what's the difference between, a multi-million-dollar budget versus, a few $1,000s? And so I started doing budgets for people. And so that took off. And so I didn't know anything about side business at that time. I'm 23, 24 years old, so just doing it. I wasn't charging anyone. And then it got to the point where I was like, I have to make something off of this, and
Right.
so
Yes.
that morphed into, my first stint into being an entrepreneur. And so I started my consulting business. And it was just get around helping people with budgets or putting them on budgets and things of that nature. And so I ended up getting burned out because I had too many clients and not enough time.
Got it. Yeah.
One of the things I learned along the way is that people are very sensitive and private about their financial information. And it doesn't matter that they're talking to me one-on-one. It was like, why do you want that information? Right. And I'm like, because I need to do your budget, but why do you want it? Right. And it's like, okay, you don't have to give it to me, but your budget won't be accurate.
Right.
So now over the years, from about 2004, 2005, I would sporadically do, that, here and there. And so when I started, the lending side of things, I noticed that people, they had everything in their head, right? As far as their budget, their numbers. And that's the worst place to have your personal financial numbers right in your head. So when I started talking to individual borrowers about like, hey, why are you, borrowing money to do this? Have you thought about doing that instead? Right. And it's like, oh, it makes a lot of sense. I'll give you a loan, but it doesn't make sense for you to, use it in this manner. So then I said, well, how can I help people help themselves? Because before, when I first did it, it was more in the line of, well, something came up, so I can't finish the budget, but I'll get back to it. And they never do, right? Or it would be, well, you told me to do this, and I really didn't want to do it, so therefore I'm going to stop it, right? It's no harm to me, but, it doesn't end well for them. So this time around, I was like, how can I help people help themselves? And I thought about all the lessons learned, in the first pass with this. And I was like, well, what if I designed something that allowed people to plug and play, if you will, but it gets away from the traditional budget to where it's scenario based, right? And so people always want to know, what if I spent this money? What would be the impact, right? Or what else could I do with this money, right? And so it had to go beyond just the typical money in, money out. So I designed this expansive tool in Excel that touches on everything for the most part, right? And so, you have your income and you have your expenses. But I created the different scenarios in the expenses so that people get to see what happens if. What happens if inflation goes up? What happens if I get demoted or I have to take a pay cut? What happens if my expenses go up and I have a family? What happens if, right? And so I have these different scenarios that people can just plug in, and a lot of the stuff is automated so that now before you make a financial decision, you can actually plug in some numbers to see what the outcome could be, right? So it puts you in the ballpark to make a better or more sound decision. And so with that, you have people who have multiple jobs. What's the impact to that? So you have debt payoff, right? How can you view your debt payoff differently? And so, I use a certain method that it works because the average person, they live check to check with a little bit above that, right? And so what this tool does is it allows them to create cash flow without having to do anything but make some slight adjustments in how they're viewing their debt, right? So you can classify your debt into different, category types. And then it tells you if your debt is good, bad, or whatever it might be, right? And so if it's a good debt, why are you putting all that extra money towards a good debt when it's not going to give you any value, right? And so now you readjust or reallocate your money towards the bad debt to get it off of the books faster. But what that does is it frees up cash flow, right? And so now, because you are living check to check, that additional $200, it comes in handy, right? And so you're still paying off your debt. And so it has like a lot of other features where you can manage your assets. You can, set your savings goals. You can look at your retirement withdrawal, early retirement. It even has a cost of living calculated in there. If Eileen says, hey, I'm leaving, city A to move to city B. Okay, well, before you do, how much is it going to cost you to move, right? What is the difference in salary that I should expect? Expenses, blah, 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 right? And so now you have all of that. And all of this is tied together, right? So that if you plug it in one spot, it'll show another spot if it's applicable, right? And so now once you go through all of this, now you have a full picture of your personal finances, right? And so you get to make these decisions. You can say, well, I'm going to put this in because I'm embarrassed to see that number. Don't put it in, right? But you're not going to have a complete picture, but it's all you. Now, the beauty of all of this is that what I've learned is that people don't know where they are on the financial independence spectrum, right? So there's like maybe 8 to 10, depending on how you want to view it, different levels to it. And so, like, for instance, you'll commonly hear people say, I'm going to get into real estate, right? As if that's an easy thing to get into and make money, right?
Sure. Right.
and so it doesn't matter, if you live in check to check or a little bit above that or whatever, right? You want to jump into something you're not too familiar with. But what happens is that you jump into these things and you really don't know too much about it, and you don't know where you can pull the money from to pay for a course and do a down payment, whatever it might be. And so you end up losing money. Well, part of that is because you don't know where you are on the spectrum. So let's just say, for instance, if you are on the spectrum where you are, say, at financial reliance. And what that means is that you're depending on someone for some form of your income, if not all of it, right? And so you could be at a 9 to 5 and you're barely making ends meet. Or it could be where your income is a supplemental income and you're also dependent on family for income, right? But you are talking about dabbling into something that's, say, in the financial security realm, which is owning assets and property or investments. Something has to give, and it's usually your bank account, right? And so what I did was, create an assessment based on this financial independence model so that you answer a few questions and now it lets you know where you are on the spectrum. But also what it does is it walks you through not only where you are, but what you need to focus on to get out of this situation and onto the next level, right? And so now with that, I've designed it so that I will be feeding you all the information that you need. So if you need to learn how to do whatever with your money, right? I'll have content on that, right? If you need to be in a group, I can direct you to that, whatever, right? So it's going to walk you through all the things that you need to do to get out of that. And so combined with the tool, now you have a complete picture, right? And so that's where 40 AM was born. And so where I came up with the name is that, and why I focus on people of color is that you see this all the time and you hear this all the time where, you see where you'll see an article where it says, Black people are lagging behind, the white population by this percentage, with their finances, or, there's greater poverty in the Black community, blah, 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 right? And I started to think, why is this happening year after year after year, right? Why is that gap widening so far to where it's so problematic that no one seems to have the answer? And I'm not saying I have the answer, but I want to play a part in seeing if I can shrink that gap. And so 40 AM is short for 40 acres and a mule. right?
Mm.
And so not sure if you've ever heard that before, right? But during slavery, the government promised slaves that, upon their release, they would get 40 acres and a mule. And so if you go back and, throughout history, you'll see that, owning land, owning mules, growing crops, that was a way to generate financial independence, right?
Right.
And so when you go back and you look at that in regards to where folks are today, it's tied because when you look at, say, your ancestors, when they came up through the 1800s, and if they owned land, and it was passed down to, future generations, that put, current generations in a certain financial situation, right?
Right.
That's better than those who didn't. So for me, creating 40 AM is that we're not getting the 40 acres and a mule, right? But
Yeah.
you can create your own 40 acres and a mule just by improving your financial literacy, right? Just being able to manage your money differently and better. And so I feel that this tool, this information, having access to capital can put you on that path to owning your 40 acres and a mule, whatever that's going to be. So that's the genesis of it. And that's how we got here.
I mean, that's
Holy
incredible.
cats. Yeah, it is. It is so thoughtful. Look, I'm not surprised that this is thoughtful, right? Because it's you, and we worked with you in the days that you were, you know, a business analyst, and you thought about these different scenarios. And I think it's so important for people to have those scenarios in mind versus like, hey, can I borrow some money? And
Right.
they're not, people aren't seeing the ramifications of it. And there's obviously
Yeah.
now, I don't want to say a trend, but there's a push towards financial independence within the Black community. We've seen
Yep.
it with I don't know if I can say her name, but a very famous tennis player who's partnered up with a certain organization
Right.
about a certain colored kind of purse. So
Yep.
we'll leave it
I don't
at
know
that.
why you can't say it. I mean,
don't
it's
know why
great
I can't say it
stuff.
either.
I
It
feel like
is
people
great
should
stuff.
know
It's
about this.
sure.
There's no
All right,
reason.
fine.
We're not getting
All right,
paid
fine.
for it.
That's true. This is not an ad. It's not sponsored, but Serena Williams has partnered
Yeah.
with a company for financial independence called the Purple Purse, I think is what it's called. So
Right.
there's definitely that awakening of we've got to find our way to financial independence because nobody else is going to look
Right.
out for us to do you right?
Yep.
And that's even,
Exactly.
I mean, even if you look at generations that are coming out of college, I mean,
All right.
you look at this, right? The housing market is bonkers. Like you can't afford a house coming out of school
Exactly.
unless you're really super lucky or you've inherited it or something, right?
Yep.
So most people are going to look at apartments with friends and things like that. That's
Yep.
only sustainable for so long. And I think this is so important. I don't know what your age demographic is, right? But I
Mhm.
don't know if you see like younger people coming out saying like, hey, look, I could use a leg up until I get myself settled.
Right.
Or, if it's wide ranging or things like that. But I would imagine this is transformational.
Yeah. And that's the whole
Yeah,
point,
that's really
to have it
cool.
transform people's lives,
Yeah. Yeah.
and part of this, like you touched on the housing part of it.
Hmm.
So there's a tool I have in here where you hear this argument where people say, "Oh, if you rent, you're throwing away money," right? And I disagree with that, right?
Hmm.
Because not
Hmm.
every situation will be throwing away money. And so I designed this calculator that shows you if you plug it in, if you get your numbers, from a reliable source and you plug these numbers in, it indicates whether you should rent or whether you should buy, right? And it breaks it down for you as a
Nice.
reason why,
Okay.
right? So that way you're well informed versus saying,
Mhm.
oh, let me, borrow this down payment and get a house that I can barely afford, right? Because you don't see the long-term ramifications of that, right? And
Mhm.
so we have I try to be as thoughtful as possible, whether you are just out of, college, or if you are middle age, or you're near retirement, where I think this can help a lot of different people, regardless of what age range you're in. And it's just a matter of making sure that it's easy to understand and easy to use. And I think that's the biggest thing, because one thing I learned along the way is about financial trauma, right? And it didn't dawn on me until I was building this thing where how you engage with your family or those around you when it came to money will determine how you view it, right? And so I remember growing up and I heard this phrase so often. And it's just like you say, like, hey, how's it going? And somebody would say, oh, I'm just a poor Black man trying to make it, right? And you didn't think anything of it, right? But now when you start to like understand, like you hear this over and over. So that means that this person is struggling, he's poor, and he's barely making it, right? And so it doesn't dawn on you, but that seed's been planted, right? And so now when you go home, so like, we gotta cut back on this, or we can't, buy this, or we have to cancel this, or whatever it might be, right? You're not giving you the full context, but you're seeing where every time you turn around, you can't afford something, right? So to make it more real, I grew up with my grandparents, and they grew up in the Great Depression, right? My granddad hated banks.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah. Yep.
Everything was under the mattress. Right? And so I understand. And so I didn't think it impacted me, right? Until I got older. Right? And I would always have money in the house. I just thought that everyone had money in the house, right? Yeah, not that much money, right?
Right.
And so my grandfather, he had this whole money doesn't grow on trees speech. I'm not gonna give it to you, but I memorized it because I've heard it so often. And it's like if you go to him and you're like, hey, can I borrow $10? And it's like, oh, money doesn't grow on trees. I have a fixed income, blah, 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 right? So now when you put all this stuff together, you just see limitation, right? And it's like, oh, limitation, lack, and everyone around you is saying this. So now you have your first job out of high school or college. What do you think is about to happen, right? So you don't have sound money principles, right? You're lacking in this financial literacy space. So you're going to end up in this space where eventually you will be poor, right? You will have financial issues to where money is tight always. And so it doesn't matter if you get a raise or promotion or whatever, right? You have bad money habits, right? And so you're just going to have more if you make more money. So you see this a lot in the Black community. And so me moving in this direction is geared towards transforming folks, transforming how they view it, transforming their lives, transforming, a lot of different things. And the part of this tool that I built in, there's a time component to it, right? And the reason that's important is because you hear this all the time. Time is money. I disagree with that, right? No, you can always get money back. You can never get your time back, right? So I need people to start thinking, about time differently and how you spend your time. So if you understand where you are from the financial spectrum, if you have sound financial principles, right? Now you're seeing your time differently, right? So am I spending my time wisely at this job that's not paying me well, right? Maybe I need to go somewhere else. Do I have enough time to get a second job? And can the second job, pay me enough to pay off X debt, right? I always tell people, like, if you have a second job or you're working overtime and you live off of that, you will forever have a need for overtime and you will forever have a second job, right? Because you can't not get off of that hamster wheel, right? And so now you have a lot of people of color who are saying, I want to start a business, right? And that's very noble, right? Where's the time coming from? Where's it coming from, right? Because when you break it down, let's just keep everything, simple. 24 hours, 8 for work, 8 for sleep, 8 for life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're working overtime, let's just say 4 hours a day, that's 12 hours. You got to pull that extra time from somewhere, sleep or life, right?
Right.
And so now things start to get a little hairy at this point, right? Because if you're not getting enough sleep, you got health issues. If you're not spending the proper amount of time in life, and life is with family, with friends, running errands, keeping your appointments, whatever, things get out of control in that space, right? So there has to be a proper balance. So now this tool helps you look at time differently. Do I have enough time to start a business? If you do, great. Now let's move to the money side. Do I have enough money? No. Okay, great. So now you don't start a business, but you have time. So how can you get more money? Maybe get another job, or maybe, do something else. I don't know. But it forces you to now think differently, right? And so that's the whole transformative piece of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible how much the mind and the concepts we have created and brought down from generations, even, right? Like you're talking about,
Yep.
do impact us. What were we? I had a whole conversation recently on generational trauma, but also on systemic trauma. Like there's just so much that plays a role in these stories we hear in our heads that are true, right? They are the truth. And if we don't also address that, then things don't actually ever change. I think that is so often left out. I mean, look, so I'm a math major. So, and, obviously worked in tech for a long time. And I feel like sometimes it's just about the numbers. Like if you just go to a CPA or whatever, it's like, it's just about the numbers. I feel like there's a whole conversation that is left out from this, and you're bringing a really holistic approach to that understanding, which is such an amazing opportunity for people, and a whole new way of really understanding themselves, understanding their families, understanding the systems that they live in. And then one of the things that I've been really focused on is, how do we become those creators then in our own worlds, right? How do we then take that step into, well, what do I want this to be? How I'm not just stuck in these patterns now. It is conscious. It is the forefront of my mind. What are the decisions I now make going forward to actually change that? And I just think that that's so much of what you're bringing to this. And I think it's just so incredible.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, I totally agree with that. I just think that the numbers tell a story, right? And
Yeah.
so what story are your numbers telling you? And I think for too long, people have not viewed their personal numbers in that manner, right? No one ever wants to say that, they're broke or they're poor, right? So there's a stigma attached to it. But it's okay, right? It's okay. You are where you are. And my goal is to get people to break that, right? Like this is where you are, but it doesn't mean you have to stay there. So what story, is your number telling you, or your numbers telling you? And I think this is going to be so important. And it helps people embrace the present versus so many people of color, they live in the future, right? If I can just get this, if I can just flip that, if I can just, and it's like, yeah, but you're not laying the proper foundation, right? And that story just doesn't start with where you are. Like we talked about, it goes back, a generation or 2 or 3 or whatever, right? And so the goal is to really reach as many people as possible, but to be thoughtful about it. Like, I don't want this to be this thing where it's just like, come on, but I want it to be focused to where people understand that this is serious, because you hear, in the Black community where, we talk about like building generational wealth, right? And I don't think that a lot of us understand what that really means and how much effort it takes to get to that point. And we think that we can get to a point of building that generational wealth in one generation. And most times, more times than not, that's not realistic, right? But it doesn't mean you can't get a foundation for the next generation to add on to that, right? If you know what your plan is, and most of us don't have a plan, we just say, well, I'm just going to save. Okay, that's great, but what else, right? And so there are 4 ways, to pretty much build wealth, right? Legal, right? Legal ways to build wealth, right? One is real estate. One is real estate. One is life insurance. The other is starting a business. And the last one is investment, right? Just 4 ways. So it's not complicated, right? But you have to understand just that basic thing to just move forward, right? And so just getting back to the basics and meeting people where they are and just going from there. And also just correcting bad information, just like I remember growing up, people were saying, you're always going to have debt. So go ahead and max that credit card out.
Right. No.
And it's funny because
Yeah.
I'm telling you this, and you're like, yeah, everyone has debt. You just go ahead and max out this $10,000 credit card that I don't have any way of paying back, and it's just like, and it just goes on, and they say, oh, that's good debt because it builds your credit. It maybe, but that's not the full picture.
Right.
So yeah, it's just a lot of bad information that's floating around out there.
Sure. And yeah, that's the other thing too, is that you don't see like, it'll take you 84 years if you make the minimum payment to pay this off. You're not going to be there. Like, that's no fun. Right. So it's just wow. Yeah.
I remember, I'll tell you this quick little story. In college, they give everyone these credit cards, you sign up for this credit card and build your credit. And it was like $500. Like, yeah, I'll pay this back. Again, not realizing how much 500 is, and I don't have a means to pay it back, right? So, but you figured something to come up where you can figure it out, right? And nothing ever came up. And so I maxed it out, and I maxed it out in one of the most embarrassing ways. I came home from a break, and someone take my little brother shopping, right? So we went to the store, and I was like, what do you want? And he's like, get anything? I'm like, yeah, get anything. Grab a t-shirt, grab some shorts. I said, you want shoes? He's like, yeah, I want shoes. And he grabbed shoes, and they were like, sir, this card's been declined. I'm like, shh, I have money on this card. Can you swipe it again?
Right.
Like, yeah, just swipe it twice, bro. And it's still saying the same thing. And my brother cried.
Oh, no.
So that's when I realized, like, oh, there's a limit to this. So fast forward, I'm buying my first house because I didn't pay it back, right? And because who's gonna make me pay it back, right? So go to buy my first house, and they pull credit, and they're like, hey, you have this credit card where you owe money. I'm like, what credit card? And they told me what it was. I'm like, yes, $500. Nope, $1,750.
Right.
$1,750. I'm like, no, it's for 500. Didn't know anything about interest, right? And so, yeah, so I had to pay it back. So again, no one told me about this, right? No one taught me this. No one in my family, no one at the school, no one, right? So, and I get off lucky. So imagine, people who have it worse. So.
It's so cool to hear all the different things and the continuous iteration of growth that you have through all of this. And I think that's just amazing and wonderful. And I kind of want to just tap into your mind maybe once a quarter now to see where you're going. Because I mean, it's just fascinating and amazing. And I guarantee in another 6 months, you're going to be doing something bigger, greater, and more impactful. Like, I just think it's a wonderful gift that you have. Is that something is that just a piece of you? Like, how do you do that? You like, I mean, I do it also. So I'm like, this is super fun. And I see you. But is that always sort of the way that you thought about things? Like, I can see the impact that you also want to make, and that doesn't just come from I don't know, that comes from something really deep within you too.
Yeah. It's funny because so my grandmother, like all parents, they ask, what do you want to be when you grow up? That type of thing. So I remember one day my grandmother asked me that question, like, what are you going to do when you become an adult? I said, I don't know, I just want to help people, And she's like, what does that mean? I'm like, I just want to help people, right? And that was my answer, right? And that always stuck with me. So fast forward, I'm at this one job and I was talking to my boss and we had a really good relationship and she asked the same question. And this is like, before I went down this path. And it's like, I just want to help people. I don't know. I don't know what it is. I don't know what my call is. I just want to help people. And along the way, I've always helped people, right? It was just, helping with this, helping with that, or whatever, right? And so she was like, for future reference, you have to define what this help looks like, right? And so I didn't know how to define it, so I struggled, along the way. And then it hit me, right? Where the help I want to give people, I want to, put them in a better situation in life, right? Whether it's, having a conversation, helping them financially, helping them find a job or whatever it might be. I just want to see people get to a better place to where that burden that they are carrying just, disappears, And so numbers, I can do numbers all day, right? And so I had to figure out how can I leverage my strengths, my talents to help people in a dynamic way that lessens their burden, And so this is just one of the things. And, and this is why, where I am now working in government appeals to me so much, right? Where I'm helping people, even though I'm on the backside of things. I'm in transformation, right? I'm doing these amazing projects, but I see the impact that it has in the lives of everyday people. I'm like, wow, this is pretty cool, right? And so, that's why it's just so fulfilling to just kind of be in this role and doing what I'm doing, which I'm passionate about, which is like transformation, modernization, process improvement, things like that, right? So it's all, tied together.
I just want to say something real quickly here, and you all can disagree with me, and that's very fine. That boss, I just call bullshit on some of that. Everyone's, well, you have to define what it is, what exactly it is that you want. What is the one position that you're going to be for the rest of your life? Like, you should be aiming at that. Like, no, I don't agree with that at all, because sometimes it takes life experiences to go through to be able to understand and define that later on. I think it takes your path to define the path as you move along it. Sorry, I just get so tired of people being like, especially with young people, you're like, well, you should know, like, what are you aiming for? I don't know yet. Like, I don't even know. I haven't even lived life enough to know that. Like, leave that open for me a little bit.
Right.
So sorry. I'll get off my
you're preaching
soapbox.
to the choir.
Right.
Let the church say amen. No,
my guess is
I
that
agree
same
with that.
person would have said, but let's think outside the box.
Oh my
but
God.
You want me to be in a box, but I got you. Okay, cool.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, I totally agree with that, because this is going to sound crazy. The world is just big, right? There's a lot of people, a lot of opportunity, a lot of things to explore, a lot of things to see. And to say, I'm going to be this one thing right here from the time I realize I want to be that thing until the time I die, right? That one thing, right? Now, if that's what you really want and you're short, have at it, right? But the vast majority of us, it doesn't happen that way, right? Like, how many times have we been in a work environment where we talk to people about, hey, what's your degree in? And here we are working for an insurance company, right? It's just like, how did we get here, right? My degree is in mathematics. My degree is in, whatever, right? And it's just like, but we're in insurance, So I just think that that's what makes life so great, where you wake up and you say, you know what? I'm going to quit this insurance job. I'm going to do this thing over here, like start a podcast, right? And so, and no one saw that one coming. And this is when everyone calls you crazy. Like, you must be crazy. What do you know about starting a podcast? Who's doing that?
Nothing.
And it's just,
No, right.
right. Exactly. But before you know it, it's opened up doors and it's taken off or whatever it might be, or it might even teach you about yourself, right? But that's the beauty of life. You venture down one road and you're like, this other road looks pretty interesting to go over here, right? And you just do it. So
yeah. And I talk, sorry, go on, Cheryl.
Nope. You go ahead. You go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just gonna say, I feel like a lot of, I work in the leadership space too. A lot of leaders lead in an industrial revolution when we are living in the AI revolution. It's a completely different world. And you are not just going to follow one ladder to whatever it is. Like, new is continuously opening up, and different ways of exploring business and the world change constantly. And to have that expectation of somebody is just living in a very old way of understanding business, in my perspective.
Yep,
I agree.
Okay. So I want to talk DeWayne math a little bit, right?
Yeah,
because you broke up life into 3 8-hour segments, right? So there's we hear about it all the time. There's boy math, there's girl math, there's dog math, there's cat math, but now there's DeWayne math, right? So DeWayne math also includes 8 hours of life. So how do you spend that portion of the math, DeWayne? Because we talked a little bit about hiking, we talked a little bit about photography, but what is your ideal 8 hours of life? Like, what does that look like?
Oh man, now?
Yeah.
Trying to preserve my body so that I can grow old gracefully.
Totally.
Yeah, I'll be 50 this year, so I have to preserve my limbs, and so I'm spending time in, physical therapy, trying to get my body back realigned, going to a chiropractor. So it's like, sometimes getting old hurts, so so I'm doing that, but I'm working on this business. I'll try to go hiking here and there when I can. I mentor a few people, which I really enjoy, and so that takes quite a bit of my time. Learning about a few different things. So it just depends. Like whatever free time I have, it's working, family, and then working on this business, and whatever other free time I have, it's I have to be very smart about that. And plus, it just depends on if I even feel like it. And I think that's one of the beautiful things of getting older. I don't feel like doing anything. Who's going to make me, right?
Totally.
Right? I could just take a nap today, and that's my day. So it just depends. And like I said, I'm going to get back to hiking this year, like really get back into it. And that's one thing I do miss. Since I've injured my back and all that fun stuff, so I'm looking forward to getting back to it.
Where's your favorite place to hike?
Oh man, the Pacific Northwest, actually.
I was just gonna say you should come out here. I live in well, I'll cut that out. I live in Spokane, so you should.
Nice. Yeah, trust me, I want to get back out there. Yeah, I love it out there.
I mean, God, the Olympics and the Cascades, and I mean, if you can hit up the Rocky, it's just incredible. Have you gone to the Ho? Anyway, sorry. There's just so much. It's just
go ahead. Yeah. I agree. Like your excitement is how I feel about it. It is just. I tell people all the time, like if you enjoy the outdoors and you like natural raw beauty, there's nothing coming close to the Pacific Northwest. It is just amazing. And you're out on the eastern part. I was out on the western part,
That's
right outside
of
Seattle. Yeah, in a little town called Steilacoom, Washington. Around the Puget Sound. That was amazing because where I lived at the time, it was like right up the street from the Puget Sound. And so every winter, the seals would come in and beach themselves, on the shore. And it was nice in the daytime, but at night, those seals start to bark. It's deafening. So
Mhm.
But overall, that's been my favorite place to hike. Texas comes in a close second. I was shocked that they have some good trails out in Texas. I discovered a dinosaur footprint out in Texas.
Oh,
So
cool.
yeah, yep. I was up on this ridge and I happened to look down. I'm like, what is that? Right. So I hike all the way down and splash out the water, and lo and behold, a dinosaur footprint. Yeah. So it was
Wow.
pretty
That's
cool.
so cool.
Yeah. So now my goal is to hike like what is that, the Oregon Trail?
Mm,
Oh,
Um,
that'd be
yeah,
cool.
yeah.
yeah. I have to
Mm,
build the courage for that one.
Yeah.
sure.
Don't get
Yeah, it's a
dysentery.
lot.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I couldn't. Sorry. I couldn't resist. You threw that
No,
softball right out
you're
there,
right.
Dwayne. Oh my goodness.
See, Cheryl, now you
Oh,
need to come out. You have to come
right.
out to the Pacific
Yes.
Northwest because it's
Yes.
totally worth it. And
Yes.
there's just so many cool places. We actually, my sister's bachelorette party last year, because we're in our late 30s, not in our 20s anymore for bachelorette parties. We went to Mount Rainier National Park and stayed there
Yes.
and did some hiking. So it
Yep.
was
That's beautiful.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got this picture of Mount Rainier. I was out hiking. It was freezing cold. I don't know why I was hiking that day, but decided to give it a go. And so Mount Rainier is in the background, and there's this bridge that at the right angle, if you look at it, it looks like the bridge is going directly into Mount Rainier. And
Mm.
so I was like, let me go back and get the camera and get this picture. And so I had to walk across this bridge, and it was like a thin layer of ice, and I didn't see it. And I go back, and legs up in the air. My hand is clutching the rail,
Oh no.
and I'm probably sure my handprint is still on that wooden rail because I
Oh
squeezed it
my
so
Yes.
hard.
gosh. Oh,
I
Luckily,
bet.
I didn't fall completely down, but I
Yeah.
went back, got the camera, and took a picture, and I came out, quite amazing. And so I entered into this contest, and it came in second or third.
Oh
So
wow.
awesome.
yeah. So I guess it was all worth it.
Totally. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Well, you let me know if you're coming out because I'd love
Yeah.
to
Yeah, for
meet up
sure.
for sure and go
Yeah.
hiking. I
Cheryl and
actually,
I would take a trip
um,
out there.
yeah,
You
I
bet.
went hiking.
Yep. Yep.
Yep. I went hiking up, was it Cougar Mountain? To go paragliding off the side of it. So that
Nice.
was Cheryl, sorry.
Yeah.
But I mean, like
Yeah.
then I saw the Olympics, I saw the Cascades. It was like a clear enough
Mhm.
day to see Rainier. Like it was just
No, that's a hard
incredible.
pass for me. That's a
Oh,
hard
I will
pass.
never do it again. Never do it again. Always wanted to have done it once. So
Mhm.
that's what I
Good.
anyway.
Yeah.
But the hike up, like you hike up to it and stuff too. There's a
Yeah.
lot of contemplation that goes on and potentially turning back, but still made it up to the top. So anyway, it
Nice.
was wonderful. So DeWayne, we are already hitting the hour here, which for us, like this has just happens. It's so much fun
Yeah.
talking with
Yeah.
people. So what we'd love for people to do is be able to find you. So what is the best place that if they're looking to get in contact with you, with the work that you're doing, or just to connect, to learn more, where should they go?
I am only on LinkedIn, so you can find me under my name, DeWayne Gordon. So, and there's plenty of DeWayne Gordons out there. So find the
Mhm.
one that works for the city of Philadelphia.
There you
Okay.
go.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Oh my goodness. I really uh, I love your life post where we worked together.
Yeah.
And I wish you nothing but the best and continued successes.
Thank you.
I appreciate that you and Eileen love to hike. As I've told people, last year I do one thing that scares me every year. And last year I did a couple things that scared me. This one was doing a 5K mud run.
Oh,
You have
nice.
to understand that the longest walk I've taken in 3 years was down to my mailbox and back. So this was absolutely bananas. I mean, I was caked in mud. I was tired. And they tell you, they're like, if you raise your hands in the air, we think you're dancing. Do this, like where you
Right.
cross your arms. And about mile one in my brain was going, cross the arms, man, cross the arms. And I so appreciate that you found joy in hiking and finding that that particular piece peaceful to you.
Yeah.
So I'm so glad that it's not all about the math and that your DeWayne
No.
math includes living life. So
Oh yeah. Yep. Have to have that balance.
for
So
sure, for sure.
yeah.
All right, folks. Well, listen again. Reach out to DeWayne Gordon on LinkedIn, and we'll put it into our socials, just so that
Yep.
people have it there. But on behalf of my lovely co-host Eileen Grimes and me, Cheryl Cantafio, this closes out our episode of You Only Go Once. DeWayne, it was a pleasure. Thank you,
Same here.
and
I thoroughly
I'm
enjoyed it.
it was so awesome. And then, folks, until next time, we'll talk to you later. Bye.